Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into a really fascinating case study. We're going to unpack the incredibly complex, highly charged, and deeply interconnected claims made in a recent viral political monologue. Now, the source material here is a rapid-fire reaction to an alleged bombshell intelligence disclosure. Our goal today isn't to take a side, but rather to neutrally break down the anatomy of this viral narrative, visualizing exactly how this commentator connects the dots. Let's dive right in.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the core Biolab allegations, look at the vindication theme, the broader dismantling of the so-called deep state, how the speaker ties it all to COVID-19, and finally, the ultimate political reckoning. Let's get to it.
All right, Section 1, the core Biolab allegations. Let's analyze the catalyst here.
Right off the bat, this narrative establishes a massive scale. The whole thing kicks off with what the speaker claims is a brand new, absolute bombshell disclosure from Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard. The claim? That there are over 120 U.S.-funded biolabs globally. It's a staggering number, right? And it's used to instantly frame this not just as some isolated incident, but as a vast, hidden network.
Building on that immense scale, the argument is that these 120-plus labs aren't just sitting in one or two allied nations. Nope, they are supposedly scattered across more than 30 countries. The commentator presents this global footprint as hard proof that the public has been knowingly kept in the dark about the true scope of biological research.
But here is where the narrative really tightens its focus. Out of that massive global network, the speaker heavily emphasizes that 40 of these labs are located specifically in Ukraine, and they assert that the intelligence community actually warned about these facilities being vulnerable. To this commentator, that staggering concentration, 40 labs, is the real, hidden reason behind all those billions of dollars in U.S. aid sent to the region.
To really grasp the urgency in this video, just listen to this quote. The speaker claims these 40 Ukrainian labs house dangerous pathogens, anthrax, plague, Ebola, stuff I can't even pronounce, SARS, MS, and more. Us money built that. You can hear the intensity, right? The commentator insists that American tax dollars equipped these labs, trained the scientists, and funded risky gain-of-function research overseas, specifically to dodge safety regulations back home in the U.S.
Moving right along to Section 2, Vindication for Conspiracy Theorists, Past versus Present.
You know, a major emotional driver of this whole video is the stark contrast drawn between the past and the present. Think about it. Just a few years ago, the source recounts how the mainstream media aggressively dismissed any talk of Ukrainian biolabs as Russian disinformation, going so far as banning users for even asking questions. But today is framed as this massive reveal where, as they say, the receipts are being put out. There's just this immense satisfaction expressed that the curtain is finally being ripped open on these suppressed narratives.
And to really personalize this feeling of vindication, the commentator leans heavily on the timeline of an online figure known as Clandestine. According to the story, Clandestine wrote this viral thread about these exact labs back in February of 2022 and was promptly kicked off Twitter. Fast forward to now, and the video frames Clandestine as being completely validated by Gabbard's alleged disclosure. It's essentially framed as a massive victory lap for folks who were previously smeared as conspiracy theorists.
All right, Section 3, Dismantling the Deep State. Let's look at the broader conspiracy.
So, the biolabs aren't just a talking point for this commentator. They're framed as a weapon. The speaker uses this highly charged quote, saying the goal is to obliterate the deep state plank by rotten frickin' plank. That's exactly how they describe Donald Trump's broader political agenda. The video doesn't see the biolab disclosure as just a standalone news item, but rather as one piece of a much larger, highly methodical takedown of an interconnected swamp.
What's really fascinating here is how incredibly fast the narrative expands. The speaker starts mapping out these seemingly unrelated organizations, linking them all back to the Biolab story as part of the exact same machine. We're told the Southern Poverty Law Center is facing indictments, ActiBlue is being investigated, USAID funds are frozen, and DOJ audits are underway. The video asserts with total conviction that these are absolutely not coincidences. Instead, it's a coordinated effort to dismantle the funding of the political left.
To back this up, the commentator outlines specific actions attributed to Donald Trump as proof of this methodical plan. Interestingly enough, the narrative cites an executive order ending gain-of-function funding, uniquely dated May 25, 2025, claiming this proves Trump literally foretold this exact moment. By placing allies in intelligence roles and forcing transparency around dark money, the speaker views all of this as a grand strategy of restoration, not just retribution. Which brings us perfectly to Section 4. tying labs to COVID-19, the logical leap.
So here's the crucial point. How does this source logically bridge these Ukraine labs to a global pandemic? Well, they lay out a three-step progression. Step 1, the government finally admits the US funded these dangerous labs. Step 2, this inadvertently validates past claims by Putin and Russia that the US was developing bioweapons right next door. And Step 3, this is the ultimate logical leap the commentator makes. They claim this is all just the preliminary stage before publicly disclosing that COVID-19 itself was an entirely US-funded experiment.
And finally, Section 5, the ultimate political reckoning. Let's look at the predictions.
The source concludes with some massive geopolitical predictions. It suggests that at this very moment, Trump is orchestrating a dual maneuver. On one hand, cutting a deal with Iran to acquire nuclear dust to trace its origins, while simultaneously gaining access to Ukraine to forensically audit those biolabs. This theory posits that these combined international actions are specifically designed to gather undeniable world-shaking proof.
And then, the commentator poses this incredibly heavy question directly to their audience. What will the repercussions be when people find out? The speaker is basically asking the viewer to imagine the public fallout, the anger, the total shock, when the general public, people who haven't been following these alternative narratives at all, suddenly discovers that the pandemic and these global operations were allegedly entirely orchestrated by their own government.
This all drives toward the commentator's ultimate conclusion. They state firmly that the reckoning most assuredly is coming, asserting that this impending exposure is the real reason the political establishment opposes Trump so fiercely. The video ends on a definitive, pretty staggering prediction that once these cascading truths are fully revealed, the fallout will be so severe that there will be no Democrat Party.
Wow, okay. We've just mapped out an incredibly dense, fast-moving, viral monologue that weaves together international biolabs, social media bans, government audits, and the origins of a pandemic into one singular theory of political reckoning. By breaking it down slide by slide, we can see exactly how these narratives are constructed and consumed, which leaves us with a final thought to ponder. When complex, totally disparate events are woven together so rapidly online, how does the speed of these internet narratives shape our collective belief in political vindication? Thanks so much for joining this explainer, and remember, keep analyzing the media you consume. See you next time.